It's nerve-wracking.
All right. Well, hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us on Conversations with Keslow Camera. I'm Brad Wilson. I work out of the Los Angeles office of Keslow Camera. I'm joined by two amazing people, Makhani and Will Estrada. We'll take a minute. If Maz, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and how you became a cinematographer, and then we'll go to Willie, and then we'll dive into this.
Cool. Friday night videos was my jam when I was a kid. I love music videos. I love music. I love the images that were put to music back in the day. And for me, being a cinematographer was a combination of watching E.T. and wanting to be Spielberg, not knowing what a cinematographer was back then. But then I sort of got engaged with music videos right out of high school. So I took a few years and I got going, and so I did videos for quite a while, and then. I really wasn't, as much as I loved narrative, I was more drawn to videos for a long period of time, but I still loved movies. And over time, I sort of finally committed to wanting to do more narrative. So that's been the path. And now that's what I'm kind of pushing towards more. But I mean, between videos, commercials, and features, I love them all.
And what about you, Willie?
First of all, God bless everybody. Hope everybody's safe and healthy. I am originally from Puerto Rico. I started in Puerto Rico with a company called Saga Films and a director, DP named Marco Surinaga. And worked for him for like 3 years. And we did a film in Spain called The Disappearance of Garcia Lorca. And that took me to LA in 1994. And we picked up crews there in LA, and that's where I met somebody like that I love dearly, Trevor Loomis. And through him, I got into the business in LA, and it's been 30 years.
Wow. All right. So 2 years ago, in August of 2018, Meg Whitman from Hewlett-Packard and Jeffrey Katzenberg from DreamWorks formed a company called Quibi. And we're going to be talking about Free Ray Sean that Maz and Willie shot that was on Quibi. And in October of 2018, they announced that Antoine Fuqua would be producing a film. Not a whole lot of information was discussed at that time. It was just like on a press release. And then you guys got on board in December. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that pre-production, because you guys are really the pioneers for Quibi, being the first show to start in production for the platform. So Maz, talk about how you became involved with the project.
Antoine and I have a relationship that goes back maybe 7 or 8 years. We did a video together for Bruno Mars and Lil Wayne called Mirror. We hit it off really strong. The chemistry and the sensibility, the way we love images, the same style of imagery. So we sort of hit it off, and after that we did some commercials together, and then ultimately he reached out to me maybe 5 years ago for a pilot called Ice. Really cool project to work with him on, because he's Antoine Fuqua, and he's got such an incredible sense. He's a visionary director, and I absolutely loved working with him in narrative. So we hit it off. And then from there, we did a few more projects, and he reached out to me about this Quibi platform. And we initially had a meeting with, we went to Sony and had a meeting with a big group of people, a lot of post people, and some of the guys from some other platforms, social media platforms, who kind of know how people like to view things. And we were talking about the whole, because Quibi, the whole draw of Quibi is it's a mobile platform, and it's a mobile platform that's going to be both, you can see it horizontal and also vertical, because the theory is that a lot of people like to see the phone, look at their phone
just
vertically.
hold it naturally.
Yeah, naturally vertically, particularly the younger generation. And so we were kind of bouncing things back and forth, and we did some camera tests in December of 2018. So we tested everything under the sun. Alexa's, the Sony Venice that had just come out, the Red Epic. Dragon, I believe it was, and then an assortment of different lenses, spherical, anamorphic lenses, and we sort of we did all these different things. And
So
ultimately, I think.
Was the conversation of shooting vertical brought up at that early stage as well?
My thought process was, and the thing that I actually threw into the mix was that if we're going to shoot vertical, then let's actually shoot a proper vertical frame based on a real vertical frame lines. So let's shoot one version of the movie horizontally, and let's have a camera next to that camera vertically. So let's take the camera and flip it and make it go vertical, and that way it's a true vertical frame for the vertical frame lines. So we did all kinds of things, and ultimately and then we gave it to the post people, and they sort of had their. And the other thing that I have to throw in here is that Antoine is a purist. Antoine shoots movies. Normally he loves anamorphic and he loves the 2:3:9 aspect ratio. So there's that. But then
what did he think of the whole vertical aspect of things?
The thing that we discovered, which was very interesting, and this was educational to all of us, was that when you shoot a vertical frame and you're doing dialogue between people, there's two people having dialogue and there's two people in the scene. It's sort of like the vertical frame really doesn't buy you anything if you're in a wide shot. It buys you feet, legs, floor, sky. It's just a lot of extra information that's not really relevant sometimes to the scene or to the story. But what was interesting is because the human body is vertical, if you want to do for close-ups, the vertical frame in a medium or a tight really works well. So we sort of were back and forth about really how it would work in a wide, and the wide was where we had the trouble. So ultimately, Antoine felt that let's just shoot this movie normal, and go a little wider with the frame, and then cut a vertical frame within the horizontal frame, and that's where we decided on the Sony Venice, because it is 6K and it's got much more resolution. And because we were shooting 2:3:9 aspect ratio, there was a lot of top and bottom to be able to cut a vertical frame. And a lot of times when we were shooting, we did shoot a little bit wider than we wanted to, knowing that they needed a little bit more headroom for the vertical frame.
The other part is that, on that first test, I'm thinking more about equipment, and I'm thinking about how much equipment we're going to need. Because when we did the test, we did it in a garage. So I'm thinking if they want to shoot 2 cameras vertical, 1 camera or 2 cameras horizontal, that's 4 cameras. That meant 4 operators, 4 ACs. And that meant, the budget was going to blow up, because we were going to have 5, 6, 7 cameras doing this.
And Antoine is a fan of multiple cameras. Antoine always, he likes to have 2 or 3 cameras rolling, even when we're in a tight space for dialogue. And it would have been impossible.
You settled on 5 cameras, correct? 5 Venice bodies?
We ended up having 5 Venice cameras for a complete other reason, not because of the
vertical, and obviously.
But yes, that's a whole other conversation. But yes, we commit. So we committed to the Sony Venice, super high resolution, and then we shot a little wider than we wanted to, giving them the opportunity to pan and scan and find a vertical frame for the platform. But we really were thinking, the way we were viewing it on the set was
shoot it traditionally.
Yeah, and the iPhone is 2.0, 2:1. So we had the frame lines for 2:1 on set.
And Willie, you were saying something, sorry?
No, that even when we shot when I went into prep, we were still thinking about, even though they decided to shoot with the Sony Venice 6K full frame, full frame lenses, I still, with Scott Eisner from Keslow, he helped me figure out the measurements of the iPhone screen, horizontally and vertically. So we shot a test at Keslow, 2:1 being the landscape mode of the phone, and 1:2 being the portrait mode of the phone. Shot the test. I sent it to Antoine and I sent it to Maz. I said, this is what we would do if we're going to shoot it this way. And it turned out it's going to be very complicated because the amount of time we had to shoot the movie, and having to be like reframing, operators like thinking of, okay, I have to frame it to center punch this for this scene. It would have been super complicated. So and time consuming because it's something very new that everybody was doing. So you have to start thinking about your regular operating mode or pulling focus, but now thinking about, oh, we got a frame for this. Oh, we got a frame for that. And a lot of people, giving their input behind the monitors, as it usually happens. So he said, let's not do that. Let's just shoot, 239 and protect, for the 221, on the landscape mode. And it turned out to be great.
Yeah. So Antoine was he originally supposed to direct this film?
Yes. And that was this part was challenging. Antoine, this was his baby. He, we talked in depth about the technical part of how we were going to do it, and then also story-wise and feel-wise and all these things. I went to New Orleans for the prep, and Antoine got caught up with something else, and I really wasn't sure what was going on. So I was prepping the film without a director for a good amount of time, for most of the prep time, maybe 4 weeks.
But during that time, were you still under the assumption that he was directing, or do you already knew that he was?
Everybody thought, we were, yeah.
It was very interesting. It was very interesting because, I thought he was going to come and just, we were doing everything we could before he got there. And then 4 weeks or so into it, he got a great sci-fi film called Infinite with Mark Wahlberg. And I think he just didn't have the time, and that movie was a go. He didn't have the time to put in
a scout, and it's like scouting all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big movie, and it was in Europe, so it was all over the place. So he really didn't have time, and so they were looking for another director, and that took another God knows how long. So we were sort of prepping as best we could without a director, and that was very challenging. Sets were being built without a director, but ultimately they found a guy, it was Seath Mann, who does mostly episodics, does TV. And when Seath showed up, obviously it was really challenging for him to come in and sort of only have a short time to prep and start shooting.
Yeah.
But the good thing is that we already had a foundation. I mean, the camera package was already there. I had already been lighting the sets, and I already had a really good idea of how I wanted this thing to look based on the conversations with Antoine. Antoine executive produced this, so he still had a lot of input in terms of the look of the film and a lot of the other things.
And you guys had prior worked immediately with him on Equalizer 2. And so did that sort of segue into you getting selected as the cinematographer and Wili coming in as the first AC?
Yeah, it had a lot to do with it.
I think Willi's talking.
Yeah.
Or the good thing about, even though Antoine wasn't there, but the core of his group that he uses was there. So we kind of knew, we knew his style. We knew, oh, he's gonna like this, he's not gonna like that. So that helped the situation when the new director came in, because everybody that was already on it, had worked with Antoine before, and we knew what to do and how to approach the film.
Oh, perfect. So Wili, tell us about how the prep went down, because there were some fun things that happened during that.
So when
the camera prep.
Yeah, when the camera prep. So in our case, we got the script, we read it. I talked to Maz. Maz has all these ideas that he wants to do. And Keslow has started promoting the Rialto, which is, the lens attachment to the Sony Venice. And because there's a lot of stuff that's gonna be in the cars, we're gonna work in a lot of tight places, and the apartment was small. So I said, well, they have, Keslow has this new camera that we can detach from the recorder, and maybe we can use this. So I started before the prep, like a couple of months before, talking to Ryan at R&D to see how I can build the Rialto with everything on it and not have a loom of 20 cables coming out back to the recorder. So that was one thing. Another thing is that Moz is going to talk about is he wanted to shoot with the M lenses.
The Leica M.
And at first I was super hesitant because I'm going, okay, Leica M's, you know, is a small lens and is an M mount. So once I put a Leica M on the camera, I lose that camera. I cannot use zooms. I cannot use other type of lenses because in our industry, it's either PL, you know, or Panavision mount. And at a Keslow, everything is PL. So that was I felt from my side, I'm gonna be limited to what I can offer, you know, to Moz and to the director. So that's when, you know, the 5 cameras came in that we have to decide, okay, how many cameras we're gonna have with the M mount and how many cameras we're gonna have with the PL mount. So it was an interesting process, you know, building at prep, making sure that, you know, we could like go from M to PL and from PL to M fast, because the schedule was really fast, it was 6 weeks. And we wanted the process, you know, on set to go smoothly without anybody going, why are we waiting for camera? So
yeah. And maybe let's back up and talk about that lens selection, Moz. If you could tell us about why the choice to go with that.
I have been a fan of the Aire Master Primes for over a decade. And the reason is because they're super fast. I like shooting, you know, I tend to like to shoot wide open on these lenses for a very shallow depth of field, which allows sort of forces your eyes to look where you want the eyes to look on what's in focus and things that fall off very quickly. They're also just they're beautiful, beautiful glass. So I've been using these lenses for a long time, and a few years back, I connected with a director, Misha Meyer, who's an editor, also a very talented director. We did a short together, and he kept talking about these lenses and talking about how, you know, it's an M mount, and I'm like, what is an M mount? What are these? They're still lenses. Technically, the glass comes from, you know, they're decades old, and they're still lenses that have been converted to cine cameras. And I was a little skeptical, but I said, fine, this is your thing. I'd like to try something new. We ended up using these lenses for this short. And the short was meant to be I didn't have a lot of equipment, not a lot of time, not a lot of manpower. And it was meant to be dark. These kids break into a comic book store at, you know, after hours, and they just have a flashlight. So it was meant to be dark. I loved how these lenses looked because they had they're the same speed as a Master Prime, very close. I think they're 1.3, so they're very fast lenses. And they're also, they have a very similar contrast to the Master Prime. So that part of it I was very familiar with. But they had a little bit of grit to them, a little bit of rawness, a little bit of natural feel to them. They weren't so beautiful, but they were beautiful in a very natural, kind of different way. So I don't know, when this pre-Ray came up, I wanted to do something different. And the reason that I selected these lenses also is because I knew ultimately that this thing was going to end up on a mobile device, on a small platform. And I felt like a cell phone is already so clean and so sharp and so perfect that if I were to use really sharp lenses, even in large format, like a Signature Primes or the Supremes or whatever else, I knew that they would just be too sharp, too plain almost, because it's not projected, it's so small.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wanted to go the other way. And the other thing that I discovered by using the M's on the short was when you use a diopter on these lenses and you use wider focal lengths and go closer to the actors, there's a dimensionality that happens. You get a sense of dimension, and you're almost in that person's space, and things fall off so naturally, almost like if you're standing next to them, not wearing, you know, I'm nearsighted, so for me it'd be not wearing glasses. There's something really interesting about that. And I knew that this film was very intense, and I really wanted to play. There's a lot of dialogue between Stephan James and Lawrence Fishburne, and the dialogue really, I wanted to be in their space because they were so separated, but they were so close together at the same time in terms of the dialogue and the story. And so that was another reason why I thought the M's would be a good choice. Now, having said that, there was a lot of limitations with those lenses too. You know,
because yeah, close focus became an issue like on day one, right? So talk to us about that, Willie.
Go ahead, Willie.
Or Moz. Or...
Well, before we get to the close focus, I got for the lens set for the first time. They're cleaning windows.
Nice.
That's perfect timing.
I open the case and I see these little lenses and I see how delicate they are. And I'm going, wait, we're doing this action movie. We're gonna be in cars, we're gonna be in hell. We're gonna be like we're gonna put the camera in all kinds of weird places. How are these lenses gonna hold up? I said, okay, fine, I call Maz and said, Maz, what's this? He goes, dude, don't worry about it. This is what I want to do. I love these lenses. Just roll with me. Come on, just roll with me. I said, okay, let's just do it. So then it came, and then I realized about the close focus, the minimum focus on the lenses. And I'm going, okay, that's fine. Antoine is directing the movie. We do movies with him, with anamorphic lenses. There's always the issue of minimum focus. So he's aware of minimum focus. We're doing a scene with him and I go, hey, Antoine, I didn't get it because minimum focus. He goes, okay, let's do it again. Let's just
back up a little
bit and we'll do it again. So minimum focus at that point wasn't an issue. The issue became later when we knew he was not gonna direct. It was a new guy that we didn't know coming from TV that, when you're doing TV, a lot of, there's no issue with minimum focus because you're not using those lenses. So then I started getting a little nervous. I said, Mas, minimum focus. And he said, let's just, just roll with me. Let's just
push forward. Yeah.
Let's just go. I said, okay, fine, let's do it. So what I did was, I went through all the diopters, and the diopters on these lenses, they work good from the 21 to the 35, where you have enough range between 16 inches to 3 feet on some of them. That's enough to do a wrap. But after that, you're doomed because you can't do it. You either have to pick the forward subject or the back subject if it's between that range. So I did, we prep all those diopters and we went on. I fell in love with them after day one because, they looked so good. Yes, we were shooting, a lot of times wide open, and it was challenging for the two focus pullers, me and Jared Oswald. But man, the product came out great.
Yeah, the Leica M's definitely were the right choice. So congrats to Moz for pushing forward and making that work.
I'll just, be honest, Willie knows, he remembers. After the first day of shooting, Seath wanted to do a lot of very close focus to infinity.
At lunchtime, after the first day one at lunchtime, that's when people started freaking out.
Yeah, because we started actually shooting in the mobile command vehicle where all the police were doing all the thinking and talking and phone calls with Ray Sean, and so it was a very, very intimate space. It was a very, very small space, and so we had to use the diopters. The 50 mil is like the close focus is 3.5 feet, so we were way within that, so we had to use a diopter. But Seath, and it's great because Seath was really thinking outside of just keeping the shots close. He would want to go from close to infinity, down the barrel of the bus to the other side to somebody else having dialogue, and that was impossible with diopters. That was impossible. So after the half the first day, first half of the day, everybody was freaking out. AD, director, producer, all of us, because we had to, in order to be able to. We basically couldn't go from close focus to infinity using diopters on these lenses. That was the challenge. But I really felt that these lenses were the right choice. So at one point, I just wanted to make our lives easy, and we almost changed our mind on the M's. And
at lunchtime, like Moss comes to me and he's like, "What am I gonna do?" I said, let me make a call. So I call Keslow, and then I actually talked to you, and then you passed me to Lionel at Lenses, and I go, Lionel, we're having this issue. Do you have a set of primes there that have like 11, 12 inches of minimum focus that matches the M's. And he goes, wait a minute, let me check. Why don't you try the Sigmas? I didn't even question him. I just said, okay.
Just like ship them.
I went back to you. I said, hey, ship them. I need those primes right here, for tomorrow. This is like lunchtime on day 1. And we got them from you guys day 2 before 10 a.m. I mean, and it shows like, how committed you guys were to us to make this job work. And the funny thing is also, like, after I got off the phone, I went to Mas and said, Mas, I got some lenses. And he goes, oh, really? What you got? So I got some Sigmas. He goes, what, dude? I said, Mas, we have no choice. Let's just get the lenses here and then let's just give the director what he wants. And then go ahead, Mas.
I had never used the Sigmas. To me, Sigmas always
Yeah, so still
Sigmas were never lenses that I ever used. So I was in my mind thinking, how are the M's going to match the Sigmas? And Willie said, don't worry. These are the closest things. And it just really, I couldn't think of another lens system with close focus to infinity naturally that
would cover full frame and everything else.
Full frame and have the same inherent kind of grainy
texture.
quality and texture and speed as the M's. So we got the Sigmas. And so unfortunately for Willie, now that meant that we had to commit one camera to the M lenses and a completely separate camera for the PL lenses, which were the Sigmas. And that became a little bit of a dance, but eventually we got it down. I mean, anytime, Seath wanted to do close to far, we would switch the camera body over. And I remember the very first time we did that, there was a lot of eyes on me. People were thinking, oh my God, this is going to take so long every time we do this. But after the first time, once that second camera got set up, it became streamlined and we got it down. And we worked around those,
What I did in the morning, I will go up to Maz and see, and I didn't expect to get a lot of information, but I would say, hey guys, do you think we're going to use the Sigmas today's with the scenes that we have? And at least the director will go, you know what, have that camera ready. So, and usually it worked that, if he said have that camera ready, we would go to it. And then we have one camera, and then we have one camera on the Sigma, usually it was the B camera. And then we would do the A camera be on the M on a longer lens, to cover for both, to cover the minimum focus. So it worked out pretty good.
It worked out. We eventually got it down, but it was a little nerve-wracking for a day or two. I thought I was going to get fired, to be honest with you.
Well, luckily you weren't, because the show is amazing. So #FreeRaySean was shot on location in New Orleans. The show takes place in New Orleans. You guys shot for 6 weeks from roughly May 5th to June 10th. And Quibi's releasing it as a 15-episode. I mean, it's a feature film that's been divvied up into 15 episodes. And they've released 8 as of this morning. And I'll admit, I desperately wanted to watch it on the biggest screen in my house, but I have to watch it on this. So how do you guys feel about your work being seen on the small device and not being able to see it on the big screen?
There's so many, it's more emotions. It's emotionally very, I guess there's pros and cons, right? The pros are that you get to see it on your cell phone and you can see it anywhere. The cons are based on, quarantine right now and people having to stay at home. It would be nice to be able to actually, because I think people would rather, their TV is not far away from where they are at any point when they're home. So it would be nice to be able to see it that way. But I took that into account. I sort of, some of the choices that I made, the lens choices, the diopters, all those things, I sort of took those into account, knowing that they would be on a cell phone. It would have been great for this thing to be able to be seen on a larger screen too. Now the vertical part, I've never actually seen any of these episodics vertically.
I actually forced myself to watch one of the episodes vertically, and I wanted to ask you, so how do you feel about audiences only, like there might be a ton of people that only ever see it vertically and they'll never see it horizontal. How do you feel about that?
I think that, from what I have seen, the tests that I've done personally on some of the other shows that Quibi's made before FreeRaySean came out, I saw another show vertically. It tells the story from one actor at a time. But in terms of all the visual data and all the details that are happening in the wider frame, you miss some of that stuff. So there's pros and cons. There's still a story that's being told vertically. There's just a lot less information. So I think the film purists are going to look at this thing horizontally, and the people that are just sort of running around and they're walking and they really don't care as much, they could still enjoy a story that's vertical. So I think it works for both.
And I also think, if us that, that did the movie, I was telling Moss that, I saw, I think episode 1, I saw it, horizontally, and then when it was over, I came back and watched it vertically. And what I felt was a little bit of claustrophobia, because it's so tight, and there's more information, left and right, and I felt like I was missing it. But like my kids, if they watch it, they really don't care. They watch it vertically, they don't care. There's like something happening on the other side. So I think it's more for the filmmakers, that you go like, you get a little selfish. Oh, nobody saw that rack to the other side. You know what I mean? Or nobody saw this. But I mean, to me, on this job, like when I want to check out if a shot is sharp, I go
into the vertical.
Yeah. So, and I go, okay, that looks good. And then I go back, because obviously the phone is so small that when you look in, and we had atmosphere, the interior of Rayshawn's house, we had promise. So you want to make sure, be my job. I want to make sure that, okay, that was good. That looked good or whatever. So
Now go for it.
No, I use it as a checkpoint.
I wanted to ask about, so did you feel constricted or restrained? Like you more or less have just 2 locations. You've got inside Rayshawn's apartment and then outside, the outside world. And I noticed that there were some very stark contrasts. Inside the apartment was very warm lighting, and outside is either broad daylight or the hallway is just like very bright white light. And so talk about that. Talk about the contrast that you established with that, Mons.
The first thing that Antoine mentioned to me when we talked about look was real. And because I come from music videos, all this glitz and glam and style and contrast and gloss, it's been a transition for me to move out of that world into a place of real. But when he said real, I was thinking of how do I make it interesting and still keep it real. I knew that there was a lot of cutting back and forth between Rayshawn and Lawrence Fishburne inside of the mobile command center, inside the truck. And I felt that if we're going to cut back and forth, it'd be nice to have, and they also shut down the lights in his apartment at some point. And I sort of wanted to create, I really felt like real to me meant let's have some fun with the reality of he's in there from noon to night, and the sun is going to drop. And as the sun is dropping, it changes color temperature, the angle of the sun changes. At some point halfway through, they shut off the lights inside the building. So now we're dealing with
that was today's episode.
Only sunlight coming in, and now there's more contrast and it's darker. So I really played with the natural light aspect, the reality of what it would be like with sun coming in plus practical lighting, and then what happens when the practical lighting goes away and it's just sun, and then as the sun drops it gets warmer, and then ultimately that goes away and it becomes ambient coming in, and night interior with the cop lights just coming in and nothing else. And then simultaneously inside of the mobile command vehicle, I wanted it to be different. So I kind of kept the interiors of Rayshawn's apartment warm, and I kept the inside of the bus cool, because that way when we cut back and forth, there's a separation. And I also remember using a pro mist inside of his apartment and not inside the bus. And the reason that we did that was I did some tests, and I discovered because the bus was more ambient driven, based on, they're in a space where the whole space is sort of evenly lit. Ambient driven the promise tends to make it sort of more foggy. Everything becomes diffused. Whereas when you're in a contrast environment like Rayshawn's apartment, and there's blacks and there's contrast, then the promise is not so inherent. It's not so obvious. And so that's another thing that we did to separate those 2 spaces. And I just really felt like I really wanted to make these spaces look as different as possible, so that you have his world and his world, and we're back and forth so we don't get bored.
Yeah.
With the same look.
No, and it worked out perfectly. Now, we haven't gotten there yet on the episodes that have been released thus far, but But I know when it gets into nighttime, you guys were shooting in more or less pitch black in the apartment because they had shut the lights off. They shut the power off. So, and I remember getting a phone call from you because you were shooting some of it with the 50 Noctilux, the Leica M50 Noctilux, which is a T0.95, so less than a T1. And you were using the 2500 ISO of the Venice. And you were saying that you guys were tripping around the set because it was so dark, but the camera was perfectly exposed. So talk to us about that. Talk to us about that combination of using the Noctilux and the 2500 ISO.
At some point, Justin, the producer, came in. I think it was Justin, walked in while we were shooting, and before we started shooting, and he said, "When are you going to light it? When are you going to turn the lights on?" And the truth is everything was on. The lenses, and between the speed of the lenses and the 2500 ASA on the Venice, the latitude, the sensitivity was way, not maybe quite a bit brighter than your eyes would see. And I'd never used the Venice before. I've always shot with the Alexa. It's been my favorite camera. So to be able to have that ability to be able to shoot in such low light levels allowed for some magical things to happen. Like the candles really were just much brighter. The candle across the room was literally giving her an edge, and that you would never be apparent. So that was really cool. And you're right, the 50 mil is super fast. So, we were shooting wide open on the 50 mil at a 0.9 some of the time. So between that and 2500 ASA, I mean, you didn't need much at all. It was really, at that point, the lights were out, there was just ambient coming in the windows, and it was incredible that we were able to shoot.
And how did that affect you, Willie, as the focus puller trying to pull focus in pitch black, more or less nothing?
We had these we had these radios that we communicate with Maz. I would just go, "Why, Maz? Why are we shooting 0.9?"
Because he loves you. He loves you.
Because I trust him. I know he's got this. He's a sniper. This is a Navy SEAL right here, focus puller. I trust him, so
it's not me. Either it was me on the 50.9, or it was Jared. It was a combination of both of us. And we throw a coin. Who's gonna get it on the scene? On the radio. Okay, A camera, go to the 50. Or B camera, go to the 50. So we know. But I gotta give it. The other good thing is if you have good operators, you feel comfortable, because like in my case, my operator is Kurt Gardner. God bless him.
Amazing operator.
Yeah,
amazing operator.
He's 1995, our first movie together. And then Christian Gibson, he joined our group on Equalizer 2. And those guys, they tell you, I'm gonna be here, and from here I'm gonna go there. You take your marks, and you're gonna do it. And then Stefan, the actor, when we're doing working with Stefan, he was.
And that Stefan was Rayshawn, correct?
Correct. We'll go to Stefan and say, "Hey, Stefan, we need to do this. We're super tight. I'm on a diopter. I don't have a lot of movement. And he, even though he was in his world, and we try to not to talk to him a lot, he was very gracious to follow, our lead, either from Kirk or from me, when we had the really difficult shots to do. And, you can see it on the screen.
And Brad, one of the reasons we did that with the 50 mil wide open, as Rayshawn was becoming more and more and more isolated, I wanted it to feel claustrophobic. I really wanted it to feel like now the whole world is sort of like he's by himself, and he's got to make these decisions. And I really wanted it to be as shallow as possible.
And obviously we haven't gotten to these later episodes, but I imagine there's a stark contrast from the dark apartment to the bright inside of the command center. And so I can't wait to see those later. Willie, talk to us about the tools that you used and your process in focus pulling during Free Rayshawn.
Well, originally, for to help me out with distances, I have a Light Ranger 2, and then I also talked to you guys. Hey, can you get me 2 Cine RTs, the Cinebugs? Because since the movie was going to be handheld and in the cars, I figured that there'd be some point that the operator is going to tell me, "Can you please move this from up there? I need room." So it kind of and then the Light Ranger 2, it's a big piece of equipment that if you're in a car, you know, the operators usually is the first thing they tell you, get that thing off the camera. So expecting that was going to happen, you know, I basically the whole movie, I went with the CineRT with the Cinebug. We were handheld and we were trying to move fast. So I had a small HD wireless 703. So I could be in any corner of the car, any corner of the house, in a position where I can see the actor, the camera, myself, and you know, I could pull focus and not be blind if something weird happened, not be on the other room like some people do. I like to be, since I came up on film, I like to be
present right next to it, yeah.
And so that the operator can look at me, can send me a signal. I can see the actor that did something different. I can react. Because, you know, when you're shooting at these speeds, you know, you always, as a focus puller, you're counterpunching, you're reacting because you don't know what's going to happen. Because nowadays, you know, you don't rehearse, you know, you just go. And then they say, hey, oh, don't worry about it, take two, you know. But yeah, we always, as focus pullers, we worry about it because we always want to have it, you know, 100% sharp. But, you know, things happen and, you know, but to me, that's the only way I can react to pulling focus, is being next to the camera, looking at the operator, looking at the subject we're shooting, and the CineRT was great.
Perfect. So for those that are joining in right now live, if you have questions or comments, please submit them on YouTube, and they're coming to my phone so I can ask them. So Ryan Griffith, Moz, he's asking, were there any particular scenes or specific shots that were intentionally shot vertically?
There was a few times where we really wanted to get like this on Rayshawn and couldn't, because we knew that ultimately, you know, even with pan and scan and the vertical, it would have been half of his face. So, but no, I mean, we really just treated this thing like normal 2.0 or anamorphic, given a little bit more headroom. And that was, you know, per Antoine. Antoine wanted to make a normal movie.
And I think also we were like, when we were framing and you were, you know, telling us to do things, we were thinking a 239 feature movie, you know, where sometimes, you know, you don't need to do like a close-up like this because you're looking at, you know, a 20 by 40 like screen at the movie theater. So that also helped.
Yeah.
So going back to the first episode, how did you build the tension with that car chase? I mean, that's really the scene that's going to hook people to determine if they're going to follow the whole show through. So what did you do different from a regular car chase?
Jeff Dashna and Patrick Langway, the DP, Jeff the stunt coordinator, second unit director, they did a lot of that stuff. We did, our unit was doing a lot of the stuff with Rayshawn inside of the car.
Inside the car.
But for the most part, they really did a great job. I mean, they you know, and I love that the movie opens that way because it just sort of grabs you. And I think that was the Quibi platform really, because these episodes, you know, need to hook you in order to.
If you don't do it by the third episode,
yeah,
you know,
exactly. And that
the
was
first episode, I mean,
really smart of them to drop 3 right off the bat, because, you know, it takes about 3 to sort of get into the story. And I thought that was very cool. But yeah, I think, you know, those guys did a really, really great job with a lot of that, the car chase in the beginning.
Not only had the Venices working, you know, we also had 6 Panasonic GH5s.
Yeah, the little cameras. Talk to us about that.
I had never used those cameras before Equalizer 2, and I can't remember where the idea came from. Maybe
for Rayshawn.
For Equalizer 2.
Oh, for Equalizer 2, it's props to Oliver Wood.
That was Oliver Wood. Oliver had used those on some other films, and they worked great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had those as car mounts when Denzel was driving around as a taxi, as an Uber driver. I had those mounted around the car, and when I saw the final, I went to the theater and I saw the final movie, and I'm looking at those shots cut together with the Hawk anamorphic rest of the film, and I was blown away at the image. This is a Panasonic GH5 spherical generic lens. There wasn't even a lens attachment. And so I was super confident, and I knew that camera would be great even with the Venice, and they were. And so we had Willie, how many do we have? We had 5 or 6 of those.
The thing is that when I read the script and I saw it start with this car chase, or there's this car chase, I called Mas. I said, Mas, what do you think? Let's get the GH5. He said,
Yeah.
yes, let's get them. So originally we started with 5, and then we had a production meeting with Antoine. He said, no, get one more. So we got 6. And then we had 3 with the 7 to 12 millimeter and 3 with the 12 to 35 millimeter. And we use them every day.
Yeah.
That's in Ray Sean's house, hallway. At least if there was like 3 Venice working, there was like 4 or 5 of those suckers all over the place. Yeah.
Well, they're really easy to set up because they're lightweight. You could sort of put them everywhere. If there's a stunt scene, or if there's, when the cops were shooting up at Ray Sean's window, we had literally, I think we had like 7 or 8 cameras on that setup, or the explosion where they tried to bust his door down. We had 7 or 8 of those, and they, they're so easy and they look great. They're 4K, and highly recommend that as a CDE camera on any platform. Really, they cut together great.
So going back to using the Rialto, and if you're not familiar with the people listening aren't familiar with the Venice Rialto, the sensor block can be separated and tethered via either a 9-foot or an 18-foot cable. And I know, Willie, you had asked to make some custom backpack rigs. So talk about that process before, that was during the prep, I think, when that started coming up.
Right. So, over the past few years before the Rialto, when the Mini came out, a lot of operators didn't want to be carrying the camera because it's too heavy. So they asked assistants to build these backpacks so they can just have the Mini, and run with it, places. The backdrop about that was like, when you were doing that, if you made a 9-foot BNC cable to connect to the back of your wireless system, you had to do like 15 other cables for your MDRs, for your wireless system, battery. So it became like, and then you make them in aluminum. If one cable will break, you have to like get rid of the whole thing and get a new one. So, and that was time consuming. So what I try to do for Ray Sean, because we didn't have a lot of time, it was only 6 weeks, I try to make everything live on the actual Rialto. Keslow made a cage for us, and then we had a bunch of attachments. So it would be easier for us to go in there and do the shot and get out. And only one cable will be coming from the sensor to the recorder, which is the 8-foot, the 9-foot cable, or the 18-foot cable. And it worked out pretty good.
Would you say that you get, go for it, Maz.
It came in really handy because it was a practical location. The mobile command center was a practical location. We were in a bus and we had 2 cameras and there was a lot going on. So the Rialto really came in handy for that particular space.
Were you using the Rialto like almost every day, or was it more of a rarity?
Not every day. We use it for specialty shot, because again, if you want to go handheld with a Rialto, it's kind of difficult because there's not much of a balance, when you put it on your shoulders. So we used it for we used it a lot in the command center room bus. We used it there. We used it in the pickup truck that he's running away with on our unit for dialogue, and but it was good to have. It was handy because we knew we had a backup. There was no excuse. Oh, we don't have no room. Okay, let's go to Rialto mode, and we would go to Rialto mode. But it was great having it.
Yeah.
What was the interior of the apartment? Was that a set, or was that an actual apartment somewhere in New Orleans?
It was a set.
Okay.
It was an actual.
So all the windows you were controlling, and.
Yeah. I did a combination of, we used sky pans because sky pans are single source bulb, and there's no glass in front of it. So it really mimics the sun. The shadows are very hard. We went that direction. And then as, those started to drop as the day went on, because this place takes place over, it's
that 12 to midnight or whatever.
Yeah. So as these things kept dropping and dropping and dropping throughout the course of the day. And then ultimately they go away, and then sky panels, which were sort of like cooled off a little bit for ambient coming in. And then once that goes away, we went into more of with the searchlights, the cop searchlights actually coming in and bouncing mainly off the ceiling. But I also had LEDs over the entire set that were sort of like, they were literally 5%, maybe 7%. Very, very low ambient coming in, just for a little bit of ambient in that space, which was amazing because of the speed of the camera and the lenses.
And did you get the red and blue strobing lights from the cop vehicles down? Okay. Because
Yes.
obviously we haven't gotten to those episodes. I haven't seen it yet.
Moving to the next episodes that comes into, and I try to keep it as subtle as possible because Ray Sean's apartment is on the 5th floor. The cops are way down there. I mean, in all reality, if the searchlights or the cop lights are going on, they're not going to come directly in there. So I really sort of kept, you could see it, but it's not screaming. At least I hope it's not.
So was anyone from Quibi there on set? Were they giving notes? How was it working with Quibi? If they were there at all?
I don't think that there was no.
Well, we got during prep, we got this little pamphlet.
Yeah.
How we're supposed to shoot the movie, and we looked at it and said, "Okay, thank you," and then we did it our way.
Yeah, we sort of did it normally. Normally. Yeah, we knew. I mean, look, we knew that there was some limitations in terms of like being too tight to pull a vertical frame up, but that was pretty much it. I mean, we sort of ran with it like a regular film.
Yeah.
What was the funniest thing that happened on set?
Willie, maybe you can remember.
I don't know if there's like really funny moments, but there were more like stressful moments. Like,
it was intense. It was an intense.
I mean, the whole film's intense. So I was just wondering, like, how you guys broke that between takes. Like,
it was like 6 weeks. It was the weather. It was super hot. You know, we're always running. You know, running behind. They were always telling us, "You guys are running behind." You know, and it was always like, you know, I was like, Maz's whispered, "Chill, relax. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna be good. We're gonna be good. Just don't stress over things you can't control. Let's just go. Let's just go." And it worked out. But honestly, there were no really funny moments. It was like it's hardcore the whole time. And then there were times, you know, during the shoot, even though Antoine was away scouting, he will fly in into New Orleans, be there for 3 days, oversee what's going on,
and
yeah,
nuts and bolts, you know, and go away. And then he was there for the last week when we wrapped to make sure that everything was right. Because, like Ma said, that was his baby.
The grand finale of the movie, Antoine was there for the final, the end of the movie. I'm not going to give it away, but that was a very important. It just really needed to be finessed, and he wanted to make sure that he was there to oversee it. But yeah, he did stop by a few times, which was super cool.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
There was a 360 shot on the Steadicam. Willie, how was that with pulling focus? Or how many takes did you have to do?
Well, honestly, we did we did a few rehearsals, and once I knew how complicated the shot was going to be, I said, okay, this is going to take a minute. We're going to do like 10, 12 takes, because it was just not on our side. There was a lot of dialogue happening, and the director wanted as a oneer. So if somebody will like screw up one of the lines, we have to go back. So by take 5, 6, you know, Kirk and I were dialed in with all our moves and where I had to, and then there's a lot of dialogue, so we both were in contact. So we were like tune in into where to go, where to rack, what follow. But still, it's like we're shooting like 2, 3, something like that on 1.3 lens, you know, because Maz wanted to have, you know, the background, you know, blurred in the back. But I mean, and the shot was crazy at the beginning. How are we gonna do this?
Yeah.
But you know, Kirk is such a seasoned Steadicam operator, and he brings so much to the table. I mean, and his artistic eye and all that kind of stuff, that he made it look seamless. And he never complains. He never takes the thing off. He never complains. And Maz can talk a little bit about his end, looking at the monitor.
It was a little nerve-wracking for me because there was two things happening. It was the cloud was coming in and out, the sun and the
So
cloud,
the exposure kept changing.
and I didn't like that scene. It was the scene where they came out of the mobile command unit, and Annabeth came from her car, and they all met sort of in the middle, and the camera sort of, does maybe 5, 6 or more 360s around this dialogue. It was all in a oneer. And I had, I was paying so much attention on the set to the actual camera move that I was getting dizzy. I mean, after take 15 or 20, I was actually getting dizzy. And at some point I had a little meltdown, and I thought, guys, why don't we need to stop and go the other way and counter this? Otherwise people are going to, and I had a hard time. It was one of my least favorite shots on the day. But then when I saw the final, it was a few episodes ago, when I saw it, it was awesome. It was great because it wasn't really about the move. It was more about the dialogue. And as the camera comes around, you go to the person speaking, and it's less about, and we got lucky because when it came around, the sun was sort of toppy and hot over our lead actress. And right around the time that it came around on her, cloud came in and it gave her a nice soft sort of,
Oh, perfect.
yeah, it worked out great. But it just goes to show you, there's so many things happening on the day that,
And it'd be also great because of it was so frenetic, that scene, and you got Ray Sean, on the other side, trying to figure, they're shooting at him and he's trying to figure out what he's going to do. And then you got all these cops, and then that camera move just added to the tension that's going on. So
it worked out pretty well.
So Ariel Brown is asking, do you remember any specific challenges your DIT faced specific to this project?
Not really. Nothing really comes to mind. It was, I think actually, the thing that was difficult for him, because we were so 360, we were looking in every direction for a lot of the day exterior stuff. Our AD had us move our DIT tent and move our stuff a lot, go hide it around buildings and stuff like that. And the range of the video signal from where the camera was to where the DIT tent was we were having some trouble. So that was a little hard for him. But other than that, in terms of setting, the look, I do most everything in camera, from a place of color temp, and even I set the ISO in the camera based on how I sort of want it to feel. So no, it was really kind of straightforward in that regard.
Any other scenes that you want to talk about or make mention of where you built up a certain emotion and how you did that through lighting?
Once again, it was really that really came from the sort of the time of day and the emotional space that he was in, and the focal lengths we were using to really isolate him in the depth of field and things like that. But
would you say that you started with wider shots and you slowly moved in? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. As we get going towards the middle to the end of the film, we really stayed on that 50 mil a lot, and then we were closer to him with the diopters more. And it was his world at that point. It was his struggle, and I really felt that, and we did that not only for his character but also Lawrence Fishburne. We really got closer and closer, in both of their spaces, so that we really isolated them from the background and made it about, the horrible situation that they were in and how they were going to, deal with it. How Lawrence Fishburne was going to try to help Ray Sean, and what decision Ray Sean was going to make on ultimately what he was going to do.
I think one of my second favorite scene on the movie is when we introduce Lawrence Fishburne character Ponce, and there's the madness in front of the building, and he drives up in his car. And I don't know if you notice, the camera's over the shoulder looking inside the car, looking out. He stops, he steps out of the car, the camera comes out with him in the same shot, and he does a 360 and covers all of that.
Yeah, and that was a wonder. We did that in a single take.
I need to rewatch that, yeah.
What we did was we pulled the door out of the cop car, but he had to park it in a way, because we're doing a 360, that you cannot see a car without a door. So it was, again, Kirk, there's this choreographed move that makes sure that everything was were supposed to be, so he can see the cop car without a door. So that was a great shot.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite shots too.
So Maz, tell us about the post process. Obviously, your colorist wasn't coloring on an iPhone. Tell us about how you guys handled that.
Stefan Sonnenfeld colored it at Company 3, and I went in there. I had a very short window of time to color the film. We didn't have too much time. He did a pass on his own, and it's Stefan and Antoine have a relationship that goes back many, many films. So, you know, but it was nice for me to actually go in there and have a say and have throw my input in. And one of the things with Quibi that was a little new, you know, something to get used to for me, was that when we colored the film, I was at Company 3 looking at a projected image, a large projected image, and I was able to really fine tune the darkness as we got darker in the film. And I sort of set a light level that I was really happy with. Now, the way that I set up my cell phone is I usually have my brightness cranked up high. And when I saw the first episode, I was really just, oh my God, it was too bright. So what I discovered is that I think the way that Quibi set it up is that when I did the color correction and the intensity of the brightness, that sort of equals medium brightness on the phone. So if people set the brightness up too high, the movie's going to be a little bit too bright. If they bring it down too low, it'll be too dark. And that's a little bit, it was challenging for me because I don't really know how people are going to view this thing. But yeah, Stefan did a really, really great job with color, as always. He's incredible.
So this is from Eric Schweiger for Wili. Which unit have you found to be the most helpful, the Light Ranger or the Focus Bug?
They're both great pieces of equipment. It's just, and I love using both. The thing is, since the Light Ranger is a big piece of equipment that goes on top of the matte box, if you're doing a handheld shot in a car, it's not going to work because the operator 99.9% of the time is going to say, get this thing off. I can't do it. So I think it's a matter of taste. I always, on my jobs, I take both, and depending on the shot, I use them, but they're both great and they're very, very helpful. It's a matter of taste, I guess.
Yeah. Ryan Griffith is asking, what was the camera setup like for the Oneer with the cup car, and was that the full Venice body or Rialto?
That's an interesting question. We thought that was a Rialto shot, and we tried it that way. But because Kirk had to come out of the car and do all of this, these 360s and carry this scene, which was 80% of the scene minus just the interior of the cop car, it was really tough for him to hold the Rialto without putting it on his shoulder. So we ended up using a regular setup without the Rialto for that.
Originally, we first started with a Rialto, that didn't work. And then it was like, okay, Christian starts in the car stops, hands it to Kirk, and Kirk goes. That didn't work. So then Kirk said, no, I'm just gonna do it. So, and the other reason, because now the Rialto, because not only, then you need to have another person carrying the back of the backpack with the body and all that kind of stuff. So there would be more people behind him. So he only had, he did it handheld, and he sat a way that once it stopped, the dolly grip will help him get out. And the funny thing is, we hit the bump when Lawrence opens the door and gets out of the car. That's when he gets out. So it's a timing thing also to make it look like there was not a bump from sitting down to standing up.
Yeah.
It worked out great because we had to do it a few times until we got that bump out of the shot.
Oh, perfect. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. Is there one last word or something else you want to share with us to end this?
I want to say thank you, Brad, for taking such good care of us on this. You really, you threw down. We had so much equipment. Anything we needed, it was there the next day. And I just want to say thank you for, the support and for the love.
Yeah, it's a whole team effort. Everybody from our Atlanta office, the LA office, everybody.
I was going to say that. I want to say, as always, from the assistant side, it's always important. It doesn't matter how good your equipment is. If you don't have the right backup and the right service and people committed to you when you're doing the job, it really is like you feel alone when you're on location. And that's one thing about Keslow. They're always there behind you, going the extra mile. I want to say thank you to the girls in Atlanta, Lori and Emily, right? They helped us a lot. Art Christie on this job there, the guys at the lens department, R&D, Robert Keslow, Dennis, Mel. I mean, you guys like rocked it for us, and we really, really appreciate it. And I'm so thankful that you guys chose Miles and I to have us here today for this conversation.
Yeah, we're honored to have you.
Me too. Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody so very much, and have a wonderful day, and best of luck during the quarantine. Hope everyone stays healthy and well.
Thank you. Bye, guys.